Welcome back. In this video, we're going to take a look at Unit 3, Activity 4, graphing from the vertex form, remembering that the vertex form is y equals a bracket x minus h squared plus k, where h comma k is the ordered pair of the vertex. For this first equation, we can see that h is going to equal 5 and k is going to equal 2. That means that the vertex is going to be at 5, 2. So that point is fairly easy to start with. On our x-axis, we're going to move over 5 spots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then up to 2. So here's where our vertex is going to be. And the next thing I'm going to do is draw in the axis of symmetry. And remember, the axis of symmetry is the vertical line that goes through the vertex. So our axis of symmetry is going to look something like that. Now remember, every point that we have on the right hand side of our vertex is going to be reflected in the axis of symmetry on the left hand side. So we only need to come up with the ordered pairs for points on one side of the parabola. In our table of values, we're going to start with the vertex at 5, 2, and then we're going to increase x by one value each step. So it's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. Now we're going to use the step pattern to determine what the other values of y are going to be. Another way to do this is to simply take our equation and substitute the value of x into the equation. So if we wanted to figure out what y was going to equal when x equals 6, all we would need to do is take the original equation, which is y equals 2 bracket x minus 5 squared plus 2, and substitute 6 in for x. And we would get y equals 2 bracket 6 minus 5 squared plus 2. We can calculate this. We end up getting 2. 6 minus 5 is 1. Squared is just going to be 1 plus 2. When x equals 6, y is going to equal 4. And that's what we have here. Now the other way to do this, as I mentioned, was using the step pattern. And remember, the step pattern tells us if a equals 1, the values moving out to the right hand side of the vertex are going to increase by 1, then 3, then 5, then 7, 9, and so on. In this case, a equals 2. So that means that our values of y are going to increase by 1 times 2, which is 2, 3 times 2, which is 6, 5 times 2, which is 10, 7 times 2 is 14, and so on. And that's where these numbers in bold are coming from. We take our previous value for y and add 2. Then we take our previous value for y and add 6. Then we take our previous value for y and add 10. And finally, we take our previous value for y and we're going to add 14. And that's how we determine the y values in this table of values. Now, let's go ahead and plot these points. So, our first point is the vertex, and we've already plotted that. The next one, when x equals 6, y is going to equal 4. So that's going to be a point that is right here. Next, when x equals 7, y is going to equal 10. So we're going to move over 1 and we're going to move up to 10. When x equals 8, y is going to equal 20, and that's going to be off of our chart. Now, we had mentioned that all of the points on the right hand side are going to be reflected in the axis of symmetry. So that means that we're going to have a point 1 spot over right here, and then 2 spots over right here. And our parabola is going to look something like this. Let's take a look at another example. So for this next equation, we can see that h is going to equal negative 3 and k equals negative 2. That tells us that the vertex is going to be at negative 3, negative 2. And we can go ahead and plot that as well. So negative 3 is going to be 3 spots back and then down 2. So our vertex is going to be right here. And I can also see that the a value is negative 3, and that means that this parabola is going to open in a downward direction. Let's draw our axis of symmetry, and now let's calculate our points. So in our table of values, we're going to start off with the vertex, and that's going to be negative 3, negative 2. And now we're going to increase x by 1. So we get negative 2, then negative 1, 0, and 1. And we're going to use the step pattern to determine what the values of y are going to be for each value of x. Now the step pattern is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on, when a equals 1. But in this case, a equals negative 3. So our steps are going to be 1 times negative 3, which is negative 3. 3 times negative 3 is going to be negative 9. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15, negative 21, and finally, negative 27. That's going to be way off of our graph, but we can go ahead and put in these ordered pairs. So the next value of y is going to be negative 2, the previous value, and then using our step pattern, we're going to add negative 3. Well, adding negative 3 is the same as subtracting 3, and we end up getting negative 5. Now, we're going to take negative 5, and our next value on our step pattern is going to be negative 9, so we're going to subtract 9, and we end up getting negative 14. We'll take negative 14, and our next value is negative 15, so we're subtracting 15 or adding negative 15. We get negative 29. And finally, negative 29 minus 21 is going to be negative 50. Again, these values are way off of our charts, but it doesn't hurt to have them. So our next point is going to occur at negative 2, negative 5. Let's go ahead and plot that. So negative 2, one step over, and then negative 5. We were already at negative 2, so we're going to move down 3 spots, and here's where our next point is going to be. After that, we're going to go to negative 1 and then go all the way down to negative 14. We're at negative 5. There's negative 10 there. I don't think we're going to get all the way down to 14. It's going to be somewhere in about there. Now we can reflect these values in our axis of symmetry, so we'll have a point there, and we'll have a point somewhere in this area. And that means that our parabola is going to look something like this. All right, I'll let you go ahead and try the next two. Good luck, and if you have any questions at all, make sure you ask.